Good evening and welcome to Mish-Mashing, and today we are going to look at a few past matches. I'm just fine.
And Kanzuki Dynasty.
So, today we're going to be looking at some Akuma matches with our friend Amara, one of our 2MK members.
Sometime last week, she fought a particular player in a battle match for some time. This player started out as an Akuma, as a Guile, and changed over to an Akuma. I have been advised that this is a good set of matches for us to go through, specifically with the goal of learning to identify habits, a player's habits and style. This can be somewhat difficult to do while you're in a match. So, rather than trying to go online and fight for someone, we have decided to look at these replays as well, since we have this player, and we have a very long streak of this player, even over a couple of characters, if not for very long. And that hopefully that will be easier to do as well. So, it begins.
No need for talk. Let's do this. Round one. Fight.
Alright, so this is clearly a close and Guile, at least in part.
Yes, I've watched this specific first match once before. My initial impression was that he was, well, I don't necessarily consider him close in, but more so possibly pressure. My impression was, you seem like a normals zoner, except that you don't necessarily specifically try for zoning. He never lets up the pressure, however. So, it could possibly be either of those. But my impression was
Round two.
more so pressure to me. But as we watch, we can certainly see. These cross-ups are certainly on point. Chip.
Guile wins.
So then he started going a few more matches as Guile, and then decided that he could get some more practice on a secondary a little more seriously. So, are we gonna watch all the Guile matches then?
Certainly.
Alrighty.
If you're trying to find out someone's style or habits, one of the useful things you can do is figure out what carries over from character to character. So by making the attempt for Guile to begin with, it should likely inform us as to what to expect on Akuma, and we can also look for similarities between the two when it changes.
Cool.
Round one. Fight.
He's now waiting more than he did in the previous match. Or at least more than I noticed him doing.
Round 2. Fight.
Nice walk into the corner. Jumped over right away almost, though. Even the ranges they were at, that could only have been intentional.
Guile wins.
Well, when we're talking about style, normally, when I'm thinking about my own style anyway, I'm not really looking for a specific, like, thing the person does in a situation, more so why they do it.
No need for talk. Let's do this.
Alright.
Round 1. Fight.
Obviously, it's a bit useful to start from that. He seems to be more comfortable with this range here than with necessarily super up close combat. You'll notice he does that block string actually, even if it gets hit. Even if it hits, he doesn't necessarily convert it into anything, it's more so just repositioning himself out. Probably so that he has the poking options with the knee stuff and such that you saw there. He jumps a lot, jumps in a lot. More so than I would necessarily expect from this level of player, even considering. However, it's either very well spaced cross-ups, or the things that Amara does not necessarily parry or stop directly. I think that's his light kick that he's tending to use.
Yeah.
Round 2. Fight.
But he uses it regardless of whether he's crossing up. Not afraid to walk in, apparently.
And yet he still tends to keep a charge a decent amount, but the moves that he does, the way he walks forward, he usually does a move that is sort of long, and then he remains in crouch block. So it's more so that he's saving the opportunity to do flash kick if she tries to jump away from him or advance on him. And if she doesn't, then he promptly moves forward and, well, gets to keep applying the pressure.
Guile wins.
Okay.
Like that forward going kick that Guile has, which name I probably should know.
The knee or the upside down
The
kick? Or-
knee, not
Okay.
not the sabat. But that it goes for a fairly long time, And that's a lot of time that you can just spend holding down back while the move goes off.
Sure.
And he always seems to land crouching for a good chunk of it. So I'm guessing that's what's going on.
Okay. I didn't specifically notice that, but I'm not a charge player, so I don't necessarily specifically focus on that very much. But the question then becomes, is he firing off a charge move after that? Because I haven't noticed that specifically either, unless it's been the booms. Which...
No, but that's my point. So, well, he also does the boom. But because of the way he does it, he can save a flash kick for if she decides, oh, I want to jump over him now.
I see.
Because it's actually a range I'm pretty sure she can get over him if she did.
So he's sort of relentless lockdown style. If he's keeping that flash kick prepared the whole time so she can't jump. Not that she tends to very much.
Right. Which is probably why he switched to doing booms a lot more often, because it lets him keep getting more space.
Yeah, he really wants to put her into the corner as much as he can, and that seems to be the goal of his walkdown. So it would not surprise me if he does if he's holding his charge often to try and keep control of that. Now, he was going to finish it there, but if he hadn't, I would not have been surprised possibly to see a cross-up that he then used to push her back to the currently nearer corner. Just to get over her himself. Alright.
Is that safe?
Which one?
The crouching heavy punch. I don't think that's
On
safe.
block? I don't actually know, but on whiff it's definitely not safe. He was keeping up his patterns even when he was out of range for them now. Not doing it regularly, however, so it may just have been that one time. Oof. So he's changed his string a bit. And possibly because she's learning to parry, and possibly because he wants to just keep it going. But he does seem, for the most part, to just be keeping her in the corner, and then just letting his string go to work on her for as long as he can stay in that situation so far. So far I would call him relentless knockdown, corner pressure style. Or walk down, not knock down.
Well, that's more so a type, isn't it?
Hmm.
Like that's more so like
Unstoppable slow approach corner pressure is not the type of type you're thinking of.
alright.
Round one. Fight.
Although you could say pressure is a type, for instance. Not necessarily trying to put her into the corner here, with the jumping over, not even necessarily for a serious attack.
Since we know he's playing Akuma a little bit later, what I would expect is that he would like doing demon flips and air fireballs to do a similar space closing.
Sure.
Round two. Fight.
So we'll get to see if that hypothesis is true later.
Ouch. Oh my.
Would have been cool if she could have parried that.
Although now he's pushing her back out of the corner instead of continuing what he was doing before. Maybe he wasn't getting enough off of it?
No, I think it's more so that he has a lot more to learn from her, specifically if he keeps her out of the corner.
Okay. So, that would make sense if he's aiming to learn things by this. No flash kick on her, like, first jumping in forever.
Guile win.
I guess we're watching that one again. Well, not the worst thing in the world, I suppose. Of course, this means now I have to decide whether to watch it again or whether to just exit back out and cut my losses.
It's up to you.
Round one. Fight.
Well, this won't hurt, so... She started to block his cross-ups now properly. She's not getting anything off of that now. So using a crouch heavy punch, and I'm not entirely sure what his plan is with that. So I haven't seen it hit once. It's probably a space control tactic, or expecting her to possibly hit something that it would then counter. Very nice timing on the jump in.
Round two. Fight.
I wonder if there is a way to block. You would have to block and attack, I suppose.
Yes. It's, his V-skill's cool because it's so slow moving that the second hit doesn't technically get to you before, like, in a really tight time frame, unlike a lot of other two-hit attacks.
Mm.
So if she parries it, the hitbox for the first one goes away. So it's a lot further back, but he can still like use that space to do cool things, like throw.
Well, it's just like Minot. If he puts out something that you have to deal with, but he can also attack you at the same time, he can use a type of attack that you can't use, that just counters parry at the same time she is trying to parry the fireball.
But if she did block, he couldn't really throw her as easily.
Right.
Because she would have gotten pushed out of the range, and then she'd also be in hit stun, which you can't throw, so... Well, no.
Unless he
that's
has a
not
setup
true,
for it to
but-
get it on just the right
yeah.
frame. But overall, he knows Amara is a very high parrier, so it's just a thing. I mean, she's been parrying a lot.
It's because she's on defensing.
No need for talk. Round one. Fight.
Alright, this is our last Guile match. So what do we know? Initially he seemed to want to do so he seemed to have a sort of relentless walk-in into corner pressure style. However, recently he's been going for cross-ups and just pressure and ups in the middle of the screen. And even pushing her back out. He seems to be rotating through various strings. Mainly, I would guess, with the expectation that she would not be ready to parry anyone until such a time as she had seen it a bunch and was used to it.
Round 2. Fight.
Ah, okay, me bazooka. He really does like his booties, though.
Sure. I mean, it's not like he has perfect strings, but he's certainly keeping the pressure up such that she doesn't necessarily know where to be hitting, at least without stretching herself a little bit in the way Amara is not as likely to do as a defensive type player.
Guile wins.
So now we get to see what he's like as an Akuma.
Gatilux. Gattylocks. Gattlocks.
Yep. I was reading it as Gatlux, not Gatilux, or I don't remember what the other option you said was, but
Round 1.
also I really haven't say it much, so. Alright, now we have fast fireball pressure and the jump-ins again. He's still doing his constant close-in pressure. New tactic for defeating the jump-overs, or cross-ups, being air-to-air apparently. It's a little harder to deal with than to do than a flash kick directly. But you may have noticed that Amara does not use them a whole lot either. That combo output. Your prediction of the air fireball control is on point so far. And his corner pressure, his pressure in the corner on Akuma is a bit faster than Guile. He's getting some of those mix-ups.
Well, Akuma just has way more corner parry. Or at least the way he plays it does.
Yes, he's getting a lot of pushback on his projectiles, for instance. He also has a parry of his own that he seems to be interested in using. So it does seem that much of his fighting style is carrying over to Akuma from Guile.
Same shtick, different buttons.
More or less, yes.
So what do you feel like he moves like?
Moves like? In what sense?
Like, if you had to describe it to someone who's familiar with martial arts but not necessarily Street Fighter directly.
Round one. Fight.
Well, the first thing I would point out to them was his just. He seems to be a advancing wall, more or less. Not necessarily defensively, but of just offensive pressure and general space control.
Like a siege weapon?
Perhaps. I was also thinking of like a big bison or other such large animal just like slowly walking towards you, staring you down.
Well,
But he's also very quick in a way that I would not necessarily attribute to them, but it certainly contributes to the general pressure flow.
well, his name technically gives us a clue, doesn't it? Gatling Ox.
Oh dear. Well, the
When I
Gatling
put it that
Ox
way,
is
aren't
not
I right?
the
See,
most
look, he's shooting his
incorrect.
Gatling gun right now.
Alright.
I'm fairly serious about this, though, as joking as I seem.
Well, I'm not ejecting directly. But I'm starting to think that I should be looking now for other sorts of patterns or components of patterns that he does beyond that basic level that's relatively well established right now. Not that I necessarily have a very good idea what specifically I'd be looking for yet.
Well, what would you tell Mira to Amara to change?
I don't know yet.
Round one. Fight.
However, looking at it from that perspective may be useful. So let's see here.
I'm surprised he didn't go for the jab after the ground pound.
Ouch. I would hate to try to tell her to parry less, but it seems like some of the stuff he does, or at least his rotation through things, is is chosen specifically to counter that sort of thing. So it would take her a lot of learning to... She would have to learn his strings to make the parries more effective. Otherwise, she seems to be getting hit by just the next thing every time, rather than being able to take advantage of it how she would prefer. So where he used the V skill on Guile, he's using Akuma's jump air fireball to allow him to close in particularly long ranges to continue his work. So I expect to probably see more of that as time goes on.
It works well for his singular strikes, though. But there's a lot of learning to do here for her, in that you just have to learn when Gadalox does his moves that can follow up with an attack.
You mean for the parrying bit?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's just tech stuff. Granted, you would have to practice on a little differently for Akuma than Guile, but still.
Round one. Fight.
Alright.
I think what I would want to see, at least tested out, is how Tatsumaki works out against this person.
Alright.
Because that
Why do you
allows
say?
you... Well, if I was thinking about being a matador, they raise the cape, right, and they, like, turn around so that way the bull has to keep, like, changing direction. He's a very directional person. I mean, he just keeps going forward.
Sure, but he doesn't seem to have trouble adapting directions at all either. Admittedly, it's generally within his own control, but he just keeps going.
Right, so what if you just took away the control from him and did something that he literally can't force you to not do? Like that.
Don't know. Maybe we'll find out.
Because as long as you change what direction he has to go into, he has to sort of pick back up his momentum.
I'm not terribly convinced. I mean, probably a little bit. But he's perfectly happy in neutral. It seems like he's perfectly happy in the middle of the screen, it seems like. And...
Akuma wins.
Well, he's perfectly happy wherever he is because he knows what to do. Run at you and do things to make running at you safe.
the problem I would see, which may not necessarily be as much of a problem as it sounds like, or maybe more, etc., would be Tatsu, even light Tatsu, is reactable-ish. I mean, if you looked at the frames for it to see what its total frames are, I bet they would be similar to that of a jump. And if someone jumps over you, obviously you're going to block the cross-up, you're going to see the direction they're going. The trick, of course, would be to hit him and catch him off balance. But what is Tatsu's startup? 12? Maybe. Especially if you could cancel something into it.
He does throw projectiles, though, so I mean, it's not like there aren't
Yes.
moments where it can happen.
Yeah, if you get the right time, it would certainly work.
Fight.
And you mentioned that you feel like he likes keeping Amara in the corner, right?
To some degree, yes. Although, as noted, he's fine in the middle, possibly because, as you suggested, he's just practicing when he puts her back out there as such, but
Well,
He seems to be perfectly happy to sit in the corner and let his... And just let his strings go after her and... Ouch.
well, so he's comfortable wherever he is, right? And against her. But let's think about where he's most comfortable. He's most
Okay.
comfortable when he has you in a place where you can't switch directions on him. Which is the corner.
Why do you say? Well, it's exactly the same in the corner as in neutral, isn't it? What's the technique you lose for switching sides when you're in the corner?
Because in the corner he can DP you similarly to how he could do flash kick, keeping you from jumping out.
He can do that either way, though.
Right.
There's nothing special about the corner, is there?
The corner means that when he does that, you stay next to him.
Okay. Sure.
You don't have a place to escape to after that. So you can keep jumping to try and get over him, which is...
Perhaps, but at the same time, if you look at it, the place you can get away to is just closer to the corner from neutral. Unless you're going to try and dash under him, but there's no time for that.
Mm-hmm. What's your point?
I guess it's just that I don't see the difference necessarily. Well,
mm, well, we know I don't give that great of advice anyway. So, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, you have my impression so far that he likes putting you in the corner just so that he can keep his pressure going and just poke at you with various things until he manages to crack you. Ah, there's your Tatsu. Which knocks him back a long way, which is useful. Oh. So let's see. Next thing I think to look at is when does he choose to jump in? Because he definitely does so very regularly. When he's particularly far out, he covers it with your fireball and uses it to get in. But other than that...
Round 2. Fight.
Max range zoner jump, air to air, just over the fireball and trying to get in. Uh-oh. Actually, you know, I don't know. Vanishka, would you check for us, just for my pure curiosity, is there a range at which there is, like Zangief's CA, no escape from his Raging Demon?
Sonic X is frame startup.
This is 0 frame startup.
No, 1.
Right, and that's why I was asking, because I don't know if the Kuma's is, or if it's just short range or such, because I know you can jump it out if it has to move. But I don't know what happens if you're up close. Anyway, here we have a lot of unit flip going on now. He's shifted to using, well, almost exclusively that round, and it got him quite a bit of damage.
Akuma wins.
What is it?
Ashura Senku does have 1 frame startup.
Okay. So you only can escape if he has to move, then.
Round 1. Fight.
Alright. No cover fireball for that one. In that range I would have expected it. I think the like with Guile, he's using his red fireball just more so he can move up with it. Or just to hold her down so he can advance at least a little bit. His near range fireballs seem to be replacing his bazooka knee. In that he's using them when he's just slightly too far away to hit with something else. Did she? Yes! Yes, she just parried his CA. And it was glorious. She should have gone right into Shinku there.
Round 2.
Probably, actually. I don't know if it'd be fast enough to get there.
Yes, I'm also a little surprised it's just one hit, unlike Yurian's, which is like, what, 13 or something? Uh-huh. Anyway, saving ourselves from the distraction of that glorious round end. Or, well, the glorious parry. Oh, darn. Interesting, it looks like only one of the hits of the super came out.
Akuma wins.
Given the trade.
Round 1. Fight.
mentioned a little bit earlier that you were wondering when he was jumping and walking, right?
Yeah.
Did you figure it out?
Not entirely, although it was an excellent move flip there. I know he does it to close in. I don't necessarily know what prompts him to press her up and switch sides and such. Or to make a similar, not quite cross up, near range jump in. That was a good one, though. Anyway. Right. So there. Why did he decide to put her out of the corner? Well, he didn't decide to put her out of the corner. I think he just expected the cross-up to land and finish the round. But... I mean, it can simply be that he doesn't care where you are exactly as long as he's slowly walking you down. And he just... that's what he likes to do.
Right, maybe...
And so he can just cross you up when he thinks it'll hurt you.
Maybe it's not to practice better against her. Maybe that's right. That it's just because it's more fun for him.
Well, I mean, you definitely try to get better, but you also play games to have fun, and if you're looking at someone's style, you probably want to look at what they enjoy doing most, because that's what they'll tend to do most. So much damage. The manual CA, more or less.
But honestly, in the corner, Amara doesn't really have to do as much thinking.
Come to think of it, did he cross up as much when he was playing Guile?
Yeah, he crossed up.
As much, though. Because I'm thinking it might be a replacement for his... No. Because he doesn't need a replacement for his flash kick with his DP. But actually, have you seen him use a DP outside of a combo yet?
No.
So he doesn't necessarily play Shoto in that way. Which is perhaps a hint as well that Guile is his main. Because I was thinking he might be going for air-to-airs at a certain range, just in case. And they become cross-ups afterwards because, well, of course. Or they become jump-ins because, well, of course. Which would explain also his closer range, non-cross jump-ins. Because he does still do that from time to time. It might also show his jump-in button choices a little bit. We would have to ask one of our Akuma experts, possibly. I don't necessarily know his jump-in game, but if it's the same buttons that he's using, that might be part of it. However, that was interesting. A new tactic for approaching, it seems. Similar conceptually, however, to the ones he's been using the whole time. Yeah, it looks like he does not want to get DP'd, but he definitely is continuing his projectile jumps. The Demon Flip is just... because he... Have you seen him use anything other than the Demon Flip throw, too? I don't... Okay.
I have not seen him do
Other than there,
slide, no.
I don't think I have. So... I think that's possibly a thing that he's using at a little bit nearer in range, where he would otherwise want to do the... If he was farther out, he would do the jump Tatsu or jump Fireball. But when he's closer in, and he's expecting possibly pressuring her into standing to block his jump-ins or any such, he's just using that to get in safely in a similar way. I don't remember if it... Oddly, I don't remember if you can throw a croucher with it. Can you?
Throw a croucher, what?
Demon Flip throw on a crouching opponent. Yes? No? Or don't remember?
Don't remember.
Okay.
Been surprisingly long since I fought in Ujima.
Alright. Well. Perhaps someone in the audience can inform us. damage when it comes time for it. Overall, at the start of this, you said he was close-in type, and I think everything I've seen does seem to more or less support that. I mean, obviously he's putting in a lot of pressure, but I'm not going to object to it as much as I did.
Object to what?
He just knows... Oh, that you were saying in the beginning that he seems to be close-in type. He just knows what to do once he is there, but it does seem to be that everything he has is for closing in or just slowly inching forward and walking you down. Which I guess is sort of hybrid of the two.
Round one. Fight.
So he's using more of the demon flip options as well. With the dive kick, catching on the upswing, as well as the throw. And just basic air hits, so. It seems to be something that he's possibly just unlocked, that he's now either using or working on that he wasn't necessarily before, because he's just advancing his game and his interests in this long set with Amara.
Round two. Fight.
Overall, this base pattern is very consistent. Jump in close with air fireball for shielding. Pressure up close. That was an interesting strangeness in the corner there. I'm not sure what he's trying to do. Yes, the tempo of the match has definitely shifted now after his demon flip set. Amara is moving differently as well. That was interesting. Why didn't it grab him?
Final round. Fight.
Huh. I see. Alright. Well, his approach to the match has definitely changed. He's using a different set of tools. So this also gives this more or less a mini character change in terms of letting us look at how he is, how his style presents itself.
Round one. Fight.
So, we've been focusing on him a lot.
Well, that is the goal. Yes.
Want to focus on Amara a little bit?
I suppose. I mean, we more or less see her a lot and somewhat know her style. I've given the mini character change, so I'd rather focus on him for a bit longer.
Alright.
Because they're both moving around a lot more. For instance, I mean, you see Amara is jumping. I'll watch that and let you know. And he started getting into zoning wars, at least, or well, zoning a bit. Possibly, I think Amara got more confident and is... Well, she's using the DP more, for instance. She's also on the offensive more. I'm not necessarily sure what precisely the change that caused that was.
Round 2. Fight.
And as a result, he has to play a little differently.
Also, serious, it's because at the range he does it at, he's not necessarily that punishable. So it's just another way for him to get in besides jumping fireball, which he's been punished for a lot. But for your point, Kanzuki, the shift is kind of because he just jumps a lot. Like, really a lot. And it's not that unpredictable either, as you were pointing out.
Sure. Yes.
Like that right there.
Mhm.
That's like a prime example.
She's just started hitting him and now he has to deal with it.
You wins.
So, if you want to know why, it's because she can EXDP a stupid fireball in the air.
Oh, perhaps.
And honestly, he hasn't been punishing in the jumping as much on Akuma as he did on Guile. And honestly, on Guile, he didn't punish it that much either. It just looked like he could.
Perhaps. Either way, Amar is definitely using more options now than she had before. And he is... The other thing I noticed in the last round was that he was standing around now. He was not keeping up this constant pressure when he was up close. At about that range, well, the range before she jumped. And not in the way that he was with Guile and with earlier Akuma Flow.
And she's been using that light Tatsu really well. Which is another adaptation that I've noticed. So between the two, his reliable tools are getting slightly less reliable.
And there's the V reversal. Now I wonder if that's a thing that's going on generally that he's worrying about in the corner, or if he's worrying about parries or such, because he's definitely not hitting the same buttons that he was before.
Round 2. Fight.
Well, he's still hitting them. He's perhaps being a little more conservative.
There's your slide.
I'm not really asking about slides, so just any of the options. He has like, what, 4? Oh yes. Let's see here. Nice kind of hit. Alright, so now I'm looking a little bit more at the ranges he ends up at.
Round one. Fight.
Actually, I'm gonna watch that again. So it starts off with a jump.
A delayed jump.
Was it? Ah, so it is. Walk forward jumping. Possibly for range reasons, though, I would think.
Yeah.
Alright.
But I mean, he's still the Gatling Ox. He still wants to move forward.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to catch her aggression, but this isn't really going to work on Amara very well, necessarily. Because she's not that innately aggressive here. Anyway, I need to start, like, actually tracking some of his special throws and such. Or where they come from, more so. So he's doing his normal approaches generally, but he's not sustaining the same pressure that he once did when he gets there. At least not until he gets into a little bit closer range than that. However, when he does, he is still getting similar things.
I see. He's jumping in right about where you get into Amara's Hadouken range.
You mean that when he gets to a certain point where she can start to hit him with the Hadouken, he jumps then? Or...
Yeah, where she would normally throw a Hadouken at.
Okay.
Which denies her both the spacing tool, a way to keep him quiet, etc.
But on the other hand, it makes his jump-ins predictable, which then obviously causes the problems that he has been having through these matches.
Exactly. Feeling stylin'?
A little. It's very simple overall. It's a base concept, more or less, that he's kept throughout most of it. I see it less intensely now, but that might be simply because he has a little bit less control of the match in certain ways. And it's not like it's gone away.
Round one. Fight.
So I suppose the question is, what secondary things is he like, or when he is not quite where he wants to be, what does he like to do instead? first time I've seen him walk back.
Well, he is a little on tilt.
Maybe. I would not have considered that factor.
Well, his normal game plan is basically being gradually shut down one option after another. So...
Yes, he can't necessarily get away with the same type of aggression he has before, but he doesn't have an intermediate option either. He can be more patient about the, I don't know, a range that will come up eventually here. But he's not able to necessarily keep up the same degree of direct normals pressure that he had before. And he doesn't seem to have a specific intermediate. Although I'm perhaps fixating on a particular point several matches ago, rather than the moment. But he certainly has to be more cautious in his approaches.
Final round.
very efficient use of bar there.
She's just reading and reacting to him a bit. Ouch. He's definitely still trying to get in, even when it is resulting in trouble. He's using the same, Sonic Boom V skill tactics, the same, jump fireball tactic. He does try to pressure her, but I think I saw earlier that he goes a little too far and gets punished.
Round one. Fight.
I think that's the first time we've seen her Shoryuken that.
Maybe. So he's up to the same pressure tricks in the corner. Although he's being less relentless and more so a little bit pokey with some slightly longer range.
Well, he has to be more careful of watching Amara's meter as well.
Sure, and I mean because he can get EXDP'd and he's been parried in the past. But actually when she doesn't have meter, I'm perhaps a little surprised he is still less aggressive. Although it might just be that he's less aggressive overall, and that he's even more so with meter. So we can watch for that too. Well, she is willing to use the standard Shoryuken as well, of course. Be reversed out. Common an occurrence. I'm going back a little bit. I wanted to see how this exchange began. Okay, that was off the jumping.
He always jumps right at the range that Amara throws fireballs at. So that jumping worked because, oh, well, obviously I'm going to throw a fireball at you because you're at the range that I throw a fireball.
Let's look at it one more time. I guess if she did try to start one there.
Yeah, you can see the flash of blue.
Okay. I didn't see it.
But, well,
Alright, well,
you,
so be
you
it.
just have to trust me on this then.
Alright, so be it. Okay. Well, the really thing I wanted to see was... the range his thing started from. Well, whatever, we can drop it for now. I want to see the range of his jumping kick. Pro.
Well, let's focus on that next round. Since I think there's more anyway.
Oh yes, there's plenty. No? No. That's it.
They were just getting in the groove, though.
Well,
But more seriously, that was like, what, 2 hours of actual gameplay for them?
It was a
like,
bunch.
In between waiting and stuff.
we've been on stream for about an hour and 15 minutes now, so if you add load times, reconfirms, and all of that, it was probably a little while. Anyway, so, the takeaways from that, I suppose, are that this particular Guile with Akuma sub has a tendency to try and want to walk you down in a sort of relentless wall, pressuring with normals, possibly pushing you back to the corner. When he is out too far, he will use his V-skill Sonic Booms, or he will use, if he can, jump-ins and air fireball to cover his advance with projectiles, just so that he has well, so that you can't just nail him out of it. He has a safe advance to move a long distance easily. He will well, when he got pressured, or when he started to lose control, he would keep it up. He would keep up his pressure. He would keep up his poking pressure in the corner, not as heavily as before, but he would certainly keep it up even when threatened or getting punished for it. He definitely seemed to be close-in type, slightly more than pressure type. He would never retreat for any reason that I saw.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen him retreat.
He walked back a tiny bit once, but never retreated. So, all in all, while I'm sure it's not necessarily everything he ever was and ever will be, I feel like I have a relatively good grasp of his basic style and what he wants to do in a match. And I could start to think about, if I was fighting him, how to shut him down or deal with or predict him. So, that said, this all came up out of a desire for me to learn to identify people's styles and patterns and such, and sort of apply that to myself so I could learn more things about my style and identify it more clearly to begin with. So, since I am next up in the replay list here, Battle Lounge, 2 days later. Thankfully she got a little bit of rest after this long set. we're just going, and we have a little time left in the stream. We're just going to continue for a few matches and see what I notice about myself and such.
Since you know our Ryu player here's style quite fine, you shouldn't need to worry about that half of the equation. Well, I would hope so anyway. We just watched an hour's worth of matches.
Yeah. So, on to me.
Round 1. Fight!
Alright, so if we go from this from, let's say, initial impressions, I'm walking in. I do try to continue approaching more deliberately, slowly than our Gadalox. My jumping range is obviously not as good. But let's see.
Karin's jump arcs being slightly less good than Akuma's. Well,
I don't know, I have a pretty good jump arc. What you're seeing
more
is that
narrow.
I'm jumping too far back, even this similar to what he was doing. So let's see here. I try to stand out farther and look for opportunities to attack. Rather, or trying to poke at her a little bit, but my goal is not so much just to pressure as to either keep her quiet or to hopefully manage to actually hurt her directly. Although obviously I'm sure Gadalox would have been quite happy to hurt Mara as well. I do keep up some pressure to basically keep her where I want her and control a little bit of space and try to get something off of her.
I'm surprised.
But I'm not using... go ahead.
I'm surprised you don't listen as much.
Perhaps. She can parry it. She can DP it. And I think I was just not practicing it at the time. As much.
Right, but I mean, if you switch between Mayokin and the Senha, she kind of has to worry about different timings.
Perhaps, but I'm pretty sure she can parry the Senhan reaction. Because only the... well, it depends which one I use, of course.
But I mean, there's times where you're at the right range when she's throwing a fireball.
Yes, and I can only use the heavy, slowest Rasenha to dodge a fireball. No other is invincible in the game.
Oh, you can't... I thought the hitboxes would have at least let you...
Nope, it's not a hitbox thing at all, and I guarantee you all of them without the invincibility will get hit by a projectile.
Okay.
Round 3.
Now I learned about Karin a little bit. Good
Yep.
stuff.
Sadly, you don't play fireball characters except for Jiri, and that's a ground fireball that I will actually go over. On the other hand, you can throw Bison fireballs a little bit, but back to the matches at hand. Unlike our Gadalox friend from earlier, I tend to be doing individual pokes rather than pressure strings or anything similar. Here would be a Rasenha moment, but apparently not today.
Round 4. Fight!
Oh no.
Alright, well. I'm a little too far out, honestly, for some of this stuff. Well, to necessarily hit. And I'm using slightly too far dashes, but I think I knew that at the time, actually, as well. But, rather than analyzing my mistakes... It's quite clear that rather than necessarily directly pressuring, although I'm willing to pressure, I am more so interested in either punishing people or catching them off guard. Staying a bit farther out, and taking advantage of Karin's ranges a bit. It's a little harder to do this for myself. If only because I think about so many more things.
Be like me and don't think about anything at all.
Only some of us have that special skill.
It's a very hard-trained ability. More seriously, that is an actual skill.
While doing it and not screwing up is even more.
Yeah.
Alright, so, another.
Round 1. Fight!
Like Catalox, I'm definitely interested in approaching and being relatively near. Although my ideal range is farther out than his. What is your Rasenha?
What makes you do light Rasenha?
Light Rasenha?
Yeah.
It's not something I do generally as part of my normal game. It's something I do when I want to catch you overhead-wise. I think you're not ready and it's just at the appropriate spacing for that. It's something I do when I want to confuse you and sweep you using Kusabi. And I'll use a Rasenha that's just completely out of range. And you'll try to respond to that, and then I will sweep you with Kusabi. Or you're just not ready for it or such. I need to train my hit confirms versus Balrog bot some more. Okay, so that's mainly it. So yes, I'm trying to more or less, I suppose, clip her with various things. So I'm more so keeping up, just controlling the space so she can't do much without, well, hopefully me hitting her. And otherwise, trying to... I remember that moment. I remember that moment.
Round 3. Fight!
What I'm also trying to do this tune is slightly more informed internal perspectives. So let's switch that up for a moment and try looking at it externally again. Block it. That was weird.
Probably just an execution error.
Maybe. There's nothing that it could have been though. Up forward punches. Up. There might have been the heavy punch was just the wrong thing. Anyway.
Round 4. Fight!
I try to get in and stand a little bit further out. Control the space between us with normals. Fishing a bit for opportunities to hurt her, and I'm just good spots where I can actually hit her and do things. But actually, I suppose what the pressure is that I'm just not giving her time to breathe or settle or move freely at all. So that combines in a way with my fishing for hits. Because obviously if she can walk out, it's not very helpful.
Yes, you do like to flow forward a lot while not necessarily providing as much pressure as Deadlocks.
Yes.
But you also tend to do things to try and make her go forward such that she runs into, well, you.
Possibly. All that liquor, though. That was an expensive strike. But I can afford it. And a good thing, too. God knows Ryu can't. Alright.
So, what I want you to do, since I think we got your ground game for now. So,
okay.
let's look at what causes you to jump.
Alright. As it stands with the ground game, I think what would make me happier is if I ended up with... part of it just from the whip punishing we've been just practicing last week. If I get more ways to... just get her to stick stuff out and get hit overall when I am doing the fishing for hits. Just something to make that more effective would make me happier overall. So that's something I can target generally. Anyway, you wanted me to look at my air game.
Yeah.
So, okay. Are you considering Rasenha's air game?
Sure. But not really.
Okay. I'll take that as a no. I only ask because I don't necessarily expect to be jumping a lot.
That's why I wanted to look for one.
I see. Well, I can use a bit of prior knowledge for that. But let's just watch for it.
Because, as you might recall, our friend Gatalox totally liked jumping all the time.
Yes, it was his primary way of getting in from longer ranges. And he would use it as the cross-ups as an option for opening people. So obviously getting over Fireball is a good excuse for a jump. Otherwise, I don't jump as much against Samara because I am familiar with her habit of DPing or more so parrying and then comboing me for a long time.
Well, if you were expecting a parry, you could just empty jump.
And there are matches between us where I do empty jump throw a lot.
Do you like doing that?
Yes.
Cool.
In certain moods, I definitely do like. I'm definitely content with that. Yes. Just foot, dunk, dud. Well, possibly. So, I don't think in this set, however, that I was very jumpy overall, so we may not get a whole lot out of it. But I will, for instance, see cross-ups as similar to seeing a time to poke someone, and then just another way of fishing for damage, more or less. And there will be times where I see a cross-up instead of seeing a button, and I do that. I don't tend to jump over fireballs unless I'm going to hit, however. Which is a little weird, because it means I don't even tend to neutral jump them either.
Why did you neutral jump there?
I don't know, I didn't even, like, register it.
Win.
But since this is our last match anyway, we can rewatch the last round.
Round 1.
And a good place to end too. This is a very nice stage.
Round 3.
So here we are.
Fight.
Right, so you did it twice in this round, Ethan.
I see. I think that was just trying to land damage, I guess? I don't know. I don't remember specifically. But if you look at it, it could also very easily be that I was trying to evade whatever she did, or I was expecting her to like throw something, or hit something I expected to get out of the way of it, and then just hit her on the way back in. When I do that, though, using a bit of prior knowledge, it's honestly sort of a gap in my game or position where I tend to just try for neutral jump hits. But, yes. Anyway. So, having gone through a bit of that, I think I have nearly as good an idea of my own basic style as I do of Gadalox's, although I have a bit more detail on his, simply because I've watched now, well, about an hour and 15 minutes of Gadalox versus Samara, and only 15 minutes of me versus Samara. But it's not a terrible starting place. I seem to like to generally close in, then either just control space and apply a little bit of pressure in that way, honestly. Playing footsies more or less, generally, if you want to actually label it. And fish for hits or opportunities to do damage either by punishing or countering something, or just seeing a hole and hitting it. And not so much create them by pressure like Gadalox did, but I guess just create them by footsies instead, more or less. Or by observing patterns and just reads. I have a bit more to figure out in details of it. But that is our stream for the evening. So we will be signing off.
Yep, so this week we're going to be taking a crack at Mikabot. And we'll probably get to work on that around Wednesday. We'll probably have some sort of prototype to show off. And you can check out our bots at 2-mk.org/bots. As always, we will see you tomorrow night around
The usual time. 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
And so, stop by another time. Good evening, everyone.